Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Des. Today, as you can see from the title, I am starting a new series called Self-Help Sunday. You guys know that I've been reading my self-help and self-improvement books throughout the weeks, and typically by Sunday, I have finished one of them and I have a ton of thoughts about it, a ton of thoughts about how it can improve my life, about how it's improved it so far, and I typically film videos on Sundays, so I thought it would be really cool to actually fold that in as part of the channel. So really the same thing that I've been doing for the last couple of weeks, talking about my self-discovery journey, all of that. I've really been talking about the books that have helped me so far, the things that I've done to help me so far. So this will just be a continuation where I'm talking about the books that I'm continuing to read that have continued to help me. This is going to be a no pressure thing. So if I read a book and it really just doesn't speak to me, I see no applicability for my life. Applicability, that's a word, right? Application? It just has no relevance for me. I won't film a video that week. I don't want to sit here and trash anybody's book. And I definitely don't want to sit here and talk about something that I don't care about. So if you guys ever see me skip a week or skip a couple weeks, that'll be why. It's going to stay very low key, very informal, literally just talking about books that I think I've liked and I think other people would like as well. So consider it like a book club. Join in if self-help is also your thing. And yeah, so today's going to be the first one. This one is on nonviolent communication, and the original title for this video was going to be Bad Communication Ruined My 6-Year Relationship, which is super eye-catching, super dramatic, and also like not that true. It's kind of a half-truth. My relationship did end, and I was terrible at communication, and it did definitely negatively affect us, but it wasn't the reason for us ending. So I felt like that would be very clickbaity and not quite true. And I want people to click on this video because they're actually interested in the topic. And nonviolent communication is very heavy, not the most fun at times. So if you clicked on it, thank you for watching. We're gonna get into it, but I wanted you to be here for the right reasons. So we're gonna go over nonviolent communication, what that is, how to use it. It's going to be a long talking one, so definitely, as always, get your coffee. I have a latte, and settle in. Skip to the little time card. Skip to the little timestamp if you want to skip right to me actually talking about NVC. But I want to tell you guys about how I figured out I needed NVC. So, as I mentioned before, my 6-year relationship with my boyfriend did end amicably. Like, we're still friends, we're still roommates, it's fine. But one of the things that he told me is that I'm really terrible at communication. And as someone who spends so much of her time talking to YouTube, speaking on the phone for my job, just communicating all the time, I thought I was very good at communication. So this struck a nerve with me. And actually, he told me this in the midst of an argument we were having. And he said, you know, if other people talked to you the way you talk to other people, you would have a breakdown. Bruh. Of course, I got very defensive. I was not trying to hear that. But upon reflection, it was true. So to give you guys some background, I am a highly sensitive person. Highly sensitive. I think, hold on, fire. I'm a highly sensitive person. I feel a lot of emotions, and all the emotions I feel are on 10, whether it's happy or sad. I feel it like at a 10. So I have a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, and most of the time I don't know how to express them. So they kind of sit here bottled up, and I'm the person where you can read everything that's going on my face, but if you ask me what's wrong, I'll say nothing, I'm fine. Yeah, that's annoying, right? So I have all these emotions. I don't know how to express them. They stay here bottled up. until finally, like weeks or months later, I reach a breaking point, and then I'm like, I'm a strong, independent woman. I can advocate for my needs. And then whatever's bothering me, I attack it and I blow up on the person. And I give a list of demands, a list of ultimatums, telling them what they have to do. And it's not good for anybody. So, turns out, within my relationships, my communication is horrible because I have no middle ground. So it's either I'm really shy and reserved, feeling all these things and not really knowing what to do about it, to I'm blowing up on a person, trying to get my needs met. And good communication needs to be somewhere in the middle, where I can feel my feelings and kind of tell them in the moment without attacking that other person. So this is where NVC came in. The book that I read for this one is actually called Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. It's by Marshall B. Rosenberg, Dr. Marshall B. Rosenberg. Pretty much nonviolent communication is a way to communicate nonviolently. Duh. So what is nonviolent? Can you communicate violently? Yes. The back of the book gives this definition. If violent means acting in ways that result in hurt or harm, then much of how we communicate, judging others, blaming, finger pointing, all of that could be considered violent communication because you're causing harm. So what is nonviolent communication? It's a way to connect emphatically with self and others, to have more satisfying relationships, live with choice, meaning, and connection. Basically, it's a way to connect without judgment. There are 4 tenets to how to express yourself nonviolently, and there's a 5th important piece as well. So I'm going to go through them. I'm not the best. I'm just learning this. It's hard, you guys. It's really hard. It's really hard. But I'm going to tell you guys what the tenets are, what I've learned, how you can incorporate them into your life, and an example with me as well. So the 4 tenets are observation, expressing your feelings, expressing a need, and then requesting action. So for all of these, I'm going to use the example of an issue that you could possibly have in a relationship. So say you're a wife and your husband works late all the time and doesn't have a lot of time for you. So that's the situation we're going to use to talk about all of these. The first thing is to observe. And this is to observe without judgment, in parentheses. So this piece is important. So a lot of times when we observe, we're also putting names on the other person, placing judgment on the other person. So in this case, an observation with judgment would be they're a workaholic, or they're not attentive to me, they don't care about me. Observing without judgment could be he works late at the office 5 nights a week. That's it. It's literally stating a fact. What is he doing? The next piece is a lot harder, expressing a feeling. And you guys know me and my emotions. This was one of the hardest pieces for me. And it's hard, number 1, getting in touch with your feelings. Then number 2, also being able to express your feelings without judgment. So same thing. So a lot of times we would say, in this case, the obvious feeling is feeling of neglect. Like, I feel neglected because you're working so much and you don't have time for me. A word like neglected is actually placing a judgment because it's telling you what you think the other person should be doing. It's not really focusing on how you're feeling in the moment. So what you need to do to express your feelings is focus on me. I feel blank. And words like sad, words like lonely, words like frustrated, these are all I words for how I'm feeling, not really reflecting what you did to cause that feeling. And what's really cool is in the book, they actually give a list of all the, not all, a good list of emotions, both positive and negative, that are actually reflective of you and not placing judgment on other people. This is one that is very hard for me. And I think will be hard for a lot of us because we're used to naming things in relation to other people, not really about ourselves. So definitely one I struggle with, and one where right now, if I'm having conflicts and I'm trying to name my feelings, I literally open the book and look down the list. I'm like, what am I feeling right now? Because I'm not good at it. But it's a learning process. So number 2, express your feelings. And let's put both of these together. So when he works late 5 nights out of the week, I feel lonely. And then the next is expressing need. There is a base human need underneath every single emotion. And if you guys go back to like middle school where we learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's what you need as a human to survive, like the base primal things that underlay our existence. So in this case, you could think about things like love and human connection as what they're needing. So when you work late, 5 nights out of the week, I feel lonely because I need connection. Very simple. The final piece, and I think probably the most important piece, is requesting an action. Requesting an action that's actually going to change this for you. How can you improve your life? Or how can they help you to improve the situation? Requesting an action is harder than you think because you have to be very specific about what you want to happen and not what you don't want to happen. So you can't say anything with, I don't want you to do this. So you can't say, I request that you don't work late. That's not going to work. The reason that doesn't work is because a lot of times when we hear, don't do this, immediately in our humanness, we're like, well, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. It sparks up that defensiveness the same way placing judgment and using those judgment words sparks defensiveness. You want to give them a request that requests. Give them a request that requests. You want to request an action that actually is a positive action, something they can do for you. So in this case, moving away from the don't word, another word that we would typically, or another phrase that we would typically use would be, I want you to spend more time with me. This is something that we also wouldn't want to say because it's not specific enough. Spend more time with me could mean anything. It could mean he leaves the office instead of 3 hours late, 2 hours late, and then he's spending more time with you. But would that really fill your need? Probably not. And it would lead to more anger. So you have to be very specific. So use positive language, positive actions, things they can do for you, and be incredibly specific about it. So in this case, something that you could say is, I request that you reserve 2 nights out of the week to watch Netflix with me, or 2 nights out of the week to help me cook dinner. A request that fulfills your need for connection and is incredibly specific. And it's going to be different for every single person. Maybe you don't want them working through the weekend to help with the kids, or maybe you want them to reserve time Sunday morning to go with you to church. Whatever is going to fulfill that need for connection for you is how you should phrase your request. So if you put the whole thing together, when you work late, 5 nights out of the week, I feel lonely because I need connection. So I request that you reserve 2 nights out of the week to help me cook dinner. Yeah, and that's it. That's it. What is highly important with nonviolent communication is that you got to understand this is not a way to force someone to do what you want to do. It's not a method to try and get your way. It's a method of connection. So at the end of all this, you've put in all this work into really expressing your needs, trying to get your needs met. They have the option to say no. And that's fine. And then it's your turn to kind of flip the role and listen with empathy to what they're saying. Figure out why they can't meet your need based on their needs. What is the feeling behind that no? And listen without judgment, listen without relating it back to you with what you're doing. Really listen for what that other person is feeling. And then once the both of you can hear each other's needs, you're able to actually meet those needs. So instead of the way we usually argue and talk and fight, where we're hurling judgments at each other and then we're both getting defensive, it's kind of like a battle. In this way, we're both working to try and understand the other person, and that way we're able to come together. Sounds all well and good. It's so much harder than it sounds. So much harder. First of all, expressing your need, figuring out what you're feeling, hard. It's hard. It's hard. And especially in the moment when your emotions are ratcheted up to here, to actually slow down, go inside yourself and say, what am I really feeling at the moment? It's incredibly difficult. This is a book I've been reading for about 2 to 3 weeks. I have been slowly trying to incorporate it into the way that I'm talking, the way that I'm acting, and it is so difficult. But the good thing about it is you don't have to be perfect at it for it to work for you. You just have to keep the tenets in mind and be trying. So if I know that I typically communicate in a way that places judgment on other people, I can be mindful of that. I can be mindful of phrasing my words in a way that focuses on how I'm feeling and not the other person. In addition, if I know I tend to not hear what other people are saying, even though I'm listening, I'm not really trying to understand them. I'm not trying to empathize. I'm getting defensive because I'm a sensitive person. So I get defensive when people talk to me. If I know that, then I can be aware of that little defensiveness part of me, that big defensiveness part of me acting up again. I can be aware of that and try and push through it and listen to what the other person is actually saying. Just to give you guys an example of me trying to do this the other day, I got in an argument, a small argument with my roommate about groceries. It was very dumb. It was a very dumb argument, but this was definitely a turning point for me, because I was able to use the tenets of this book to react in a much more useful way. So we were getting into this argument about groceries. My immediate reaction was to become very upset and to run away. So I did that. I did what I usually do. I got upset. I bottled my emotions in here and just left the conversation. I went to my room and closed the door. When I went to my room, I actually sat and took 15 minutes to try and figure out what was I actually feeling. Like, what is the emotion going on in here that's making me ball up like this? After 15 minutes, I was able to finally name my emotion. And I think this is the first time in the 6 years that I've known, like, my roommate, my ex-boyfriend. This is the first time in those 6 years that I actually had an argument, had a strong emotion, and then came back to the conversation almost immediately. So, number one, that was a huge turning point. So I came back and I actually said, this is how I'm feeling about this. Amazing. I was so proud of myself. And then immediately, instead of what I thought was going to happen, which was, oh, well, okay, I understand. Let's do it that way. Instead of that, he got upset and he started expressing what he was feeling. And at that point, that was not what I was expecting. I was expecting everything to be peachy keen, just like it went in the book. No, you're dealing with a real human. So it's going to be a lot more intense than that. So I expressed my emotion. He got upset, expressed his, and then we had a back and forth for about 20 minutes. It was not fun. It was not by the book. I wasn't expressing my feelings as clearly as I would have liked. Of course, I cried because I cry for everything. If I'm feeling emotions, I'm crying. So I cried. I had a lump in my throat. We were going back and forth, arguing. But what I was able to do differently was I was able to actually listen with empathy. So number one, I was able to express. Number two, I was able to listen with empathy, I think probably for the first time. And what's funny is pretty much towards the end of the conversation, once I was listening to what he was saying, I was like, why didn't you tell me this before? And he said, I did. I told you this months ago, and we never did anything about it. And what I realized was we've been having the same conversation for months, and neither of us was hearing the other person. We were not listening with empathy. I was getting defensive and launching into attack, and he was doing the same thing. So even with something as stupid as groceries, we were locked in this argument cycle because neither of us was listening to the other person. The small argument, the tiff, ended. Basically, nothing in this situation changed from the beginning. But what was interesting is that when we were able to actually listen to each other and connect, we figured out that what we had made into an issue was really a non-issue. Like, it was something that nothing needed to change at all. It's just that both of us had no idea where the other person was coming from. We were completely missing each other and making a big deal out of this when it didn't need to be. Like I said, this is not something I'm perfect at, and it's not something you have to be perfect at. Literally, just the attempt at connecting with another person versus fighting them is enough to make a difference. So I have already seen how amazing it can be in my own life, and I'm going to continue to improve upon it, to work it into my conversations and my dealings with other people so that I'm able to fully connect with the people in my life rather than running into my shell, getting defensive, and putting up walls, because that's something I never want to do. I believe human connection is one of the main reasons we're on earth. It's to connect with the other people, learn what we can from those in our lives. How can we do that if we're putting up walls all the time? You have to be open and you have to be vulnerable in order to make these connections and make them meaningful. So it's highly important to me that this is something that I understand and that I get down. I don't want to say to a science, but get down so that I'm always thinking about it and keeping it top of mind. I highly recommend everyone go pick this up. It's not a quick read. Like I said, it took me like 3 weeks. It's not a quick read. It's not exactly a fun read, but it's something I think could improve 100% every single person's lives, because we all do this. We all communicate in this completely ineffectual way, and it leaves us all hurt, all upset, all not getting what we need out of life. If we learn to connect with each other, hear each other, see each other, I think the world could be a better place. And I don't mean to make this very sappy, but I think this book could change the world. Okay. But no, really, pick up the book and let me know if you've read it. If you've read it and have been using it longer than me, definitely put in the comments and tell me how it's worked for you or if it hasn't worked. Also, let me know if you guys have the same problems I have, where you're super sensitive and don't tell anybody anything that's going on with you. Please let me know I'm not alone, okay? All right, so that is going to be all for this one. Like I said, this book is dense. There's so much that I didn't talk about, so please pick it up if you're at all interested in this topic. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you if you made it to the end of this video. Thank you for listening to me ramble. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time for Self Help Sunday. Thanks for watching. Bye. Did I really talk for 30 minutes? Jeez Louises.